For 3 years, she treated me like dirt under her heel. Our marriage was nothing but rules scrawled across sticky notes plastered on the fridge. Separate rooms. Don't pick me up from work. Never tell anyone we're married. She was an ice queen through and through. But then came the accident, and everything changed. The first words out her mouth, lying fragile in that hospital bed, weren't orders. They weren't venom. They were a whisper, trembling, tugging at my jacket with all the innocence of a child. "Honey, hold me." It was day 10 since bringing her home. The same woman who once flinched from my touch was now clinging to me like her life depended on it. The woman who wouldn't even let me graze her fingertips now brushed her lips against my ear, her breath hot, warning, "Let go and I'll bite you." How does a car crash turn an iceberg into someone sweet, clingy, almost possessive? Even I didn't know. At the hospital, I stood outside her room, staring through the glass. Her head was wrapped in gauze, her body pale, fragile. So unlike the Victoria I knew, the woman who could bring an entire boardroom to its knees with one look. Just 3 days earlier, her black Bentley had been crushed on the Bay Bridge. And when I heard the news for the first time in years, I felt my heart stop. Cold marriage or not, the truth was brutal. I was terrified of losing her. Vital, stable, the doctor said, pulling me back. Some minor bleeding, but under control. The main issue is post-concussive syndrome. It may cause memory loss. Memory loss. The words hit like a hammer. He told me to remind her of the past, bring her comfort with familiar things. But what past did I give her? The time she threw a binder at my head? The fridge full of marital rules? Still, I pushed the door open. And when she turned those clouded eyes on me, eyes once sharp as blades, but now lost and trembling, my heart thudded. She reached out with shaking fingers, barely able to grip the hem of my suit. And then, through tears, came that impossible plea. "Honey, hold me." Time stopped. Alex, my assistant, dropped his file on the floor behind me, too stunned to move. My own reflection in the polished wall trim looked just as ridiculous, staring wide-eyed like I was hallucinating. This couldn't be her. But she tugged again, crying harder. "Honey, are they going to give me a shot? I'm scared." This was the same woman who once jabbed her stiletto into my chest and told me to get lost. Now she was shaking in an oversized hospital gown, clinging to me like I was her only anchor. I moved awkwardly, patting her back. My voice cracked unsteady. "It's okay, no shots. Just a routine checkup." And that was all it took. She collapsed against me, wrapping her arms around my neck, breath warm against my skin. "Then kiss me. If you kiss me, I won't be scared." She tilted her face up, eyes squeezed shut, lips waiting. And for the first time in years, I didn't know whether I was holding my wife or a stranger wearing her heart. The gauze at the back of her head caught my eye, and I froze, terrified of hurting her. My hesitation made her eyes flutter open. Tears clung to her lashes, and when she looked at me, there was nothing but confusion and hurt in those once cold eyes. Her voice trembled, soft and pitiful. You always used to kiss me." For years, those eyes had been glacial, sharp, unyielding, merciless. But now, they had melted into liquid honey, shimmering with expectation, with need. My scalp tingled under the weight of it. 3 years of marriage, and I had never touched those lips. Not once. Lips that had only ever delivered orders, as cold as the steel of her stilettos. I inhaled deeply, bracing myself like a man walking toward his own execution, and leaned down. The kiss was barely there, no more than the brush of a dragonfly's wing against the corner of her mouth. She gasped, covered her face with both hands, but peeked at me through her fingers. Her cheeks flushed, her voice bubbling with shy delight. "Honey, you're so bashful." Across the room, Alex finally snapped out of his trance. He bent down reverently to pick up the file he'd dropped, again, and backed out of the room like a malfunctioning robot, shoulders shaking, head bowed. He even had the decency to shut the door behind him, but I could practically hear his muffled laughter exploding in the hallway. Damn it! When Victoria's memory returned, I was done for. She'd have me executed first, then exile Alex to some data entry department in the middle of nowhere. But before I could think, she shot her arms into the air like a little girl begging for candy. I want my honey to carry me home. Resigned, I bent down for Princess Carrie, but she twisted away, climbing onto my back instead, her long legs wrapped tightly around my waist, her chin resting on my head as she hummed triumphantly. Giddy up, horsey. Let's go. Victoria, don't push it. The vein in my temple throbbed. You're yelling at me. Her lip trembled, and in an instant her voice cracked into a sob. She buried her face in my neck, like a wounded child. My head hurts. Owie. I shut my mouth. Game over. She was the patient. She was the boss. If she asked me to climb a ladder and fetch her a star, I'd already be looking for the ladder. Down the hall we went, me with Victoria on my back, her arms looped happily around my neck, her smile brighter than I'd ever seen. Executives lined the corridor, staring in stunned silence. Then, one by one, they bowed their heads, shoulders quaking as they tried not to laugh. Frank, the bald CFO, didn't even bother hiding it. He threw me a massive thumbs up from across the hall, eyes shining with a mix of awe and mischief. I shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Fine. Let them laugh now. When the Queen returned, I'd make sure she knew exactly who found her temporary insanity so amusing. And Frank's shiny head would be first on the chopping block. But her soft whisper brought me back, warm breath tickling my ear. Honey, why is our car so tiny? It doesn't look comfy at all. I froze, hand on the Uber handle. Our car? I sighed, tried to explain gently. You're usually used to your Lincoln or the Bentley. Oh. She nodded solemnly, like she understood. Then she scrambled into the back seat, still clutching my jacket. She patted the space beside her. Then you have to hold me tight. I get carsick in tiny little cars like this. The driver glanced at us in the rearview mirror, eyes wide, like he wasn't sure if he was part of a drama or a hostage situation. I gritted my teeth and slid in, trying to pry her off me to claim even an inch of space. But her eyes instantly welled with tears. You really don't love me anymore. I never said my defense was useless. Then hold me tighter. She didn't wait for me to agree. She wrapped my arm around her shoulders, snuggled into my chest, and began idly twirling my tie around her finger, perfectly content. The city blurred past the window, but her voice broke the silence. Honey, what was I like before? I stared outside, searching for words. Images of her stormed through my mind. Victoria in a razor-sharp suit, heels clicking down polished floors, employees scattering in her wake. Victoria at board meetings, dismantling opponents with nothing but her voice and her eyes, as sharp as blades. You were independent, I said carefully, capable, a leader. She tilted her head, eyes narrowed in playful suspicion. So I never spent time with you. Before I could react, her lips brushed my throat, a quick, light bite on my Adam's apple. Bad honey, you were always working and ignoring me. I sucked in a sharp breath, hand flying to my neck. The driver, who had seen everything in the rear view, jerked the wheel in shock. The car fishtailed slightly. If I survived this marriage, I was filing for emotional distress compensation. By the time we made it home, Maria, our housekeeper, was trimming flowers in the living room. She looked up just in time to see me walking with Victoria, clinging to me like a koala. The shears slipped from her hands, decapitating a perfect lily. Mr. Thompson, her voice shook. She stared at Victoria, at her face pressed against my chest. Victoria popped her head up, beaming. I'm his wife, she chirped proudly, before turning back to me with a whine. Honey, I'm thirsty. I want water. And with her glued to my side, every step I took felt like walking with a shadow that refused to let go. She clung to the back of my shirt like her life depended on it. I tugged, exasperated. Let go. How am I supposed to get you water like this? She blinked up at me, eyes wide, then glanced at my stretched-out shirt. Something clicked. Without a word, she grabbed my hand and pressed it firmly against her waist. Then you can hold me while you do it. That way you don't have to let go. Her waist was warm, impossibly soft under my palm. My entire arm went rigid. And then, crash. The glass slipped from my other hand, shattering in the sink. Maria gasped like she was about to have a heart attack and made the fastest retreat I'd ever seen from a kitchen. Victoria only giggled triumphant, flashing two sharp little canines I'd never noticed before. Innocent but wicked. "Honey," she whispered, suddenly pointing at the massive wedding portrait on the living room wall. "Why are you standing so far away from me in the picture? We don't look close at all." My throat went dry. That portrait had always been nothing more than a prop for our arranged marriage. She looked breathtaking in her gown, but her face was ice, cold, detached, distant. And me, standing beside her like a stranger, stiff tuxedo, stiff smile, with a gulf of space between us. We looked less like newlyweds and more like hostages forced into a photo op. I scrambled for an excuse, but she was already barefoot on the marble floor, poking at the frozen, joyless bride in the picture. This mean lady, she probably wouldn't let her husband get close. So mean. I almost choked, and then she spun toward me with a gleam in her eyes, phone already in hand. "Honey, let's take new ones." Before I could argue, she tugged me down by the tie, pressed her head against my shoulder, and snapped away, her beaming, me looking like a deer in headlights. She scrolled through the photos, her face glowing. "This one's the best. Let's print it and hang them everywhere. Replace all the ugly old ones in this big house." I pictured a future haunted by walls plastered with my stiff, awkward smile. My vision darkened. Dinner was no reprieve. She refused her chair and insisted on perching on my lap, spoon in hand, open wide. It was molten chocolate lava cake. She blew on it carefully, but her aim was clumsy. The spoon clanked hard against my teeth. She panicked, fumbling for a napkin. "I'm sorry. Did that hurt? Let me try again." This time she scooped a bite for herself, then leaned in without hesitation. Her lips, warm and tasting of rich chocolate, pressed against mine as she tried to pass the dessert to me. Every nerve in my body lit up. The second her tongue brushed against the roof of my mouth, I jolted back hard. My skull collided with the chandelier above, sending it clattering like an alarm. Pain shot through my head as she pulled back, wide-eyed and trembling. "Honey, you don't like it when I feed you like that." Her voice cracked, tears gathering again. Through the pounding in my head and the chaos in my chest, I forced the words out. "I love it. Just next time, give me a little warning." Her mood flipped in an instant, like clouds parting after rain. She grinned, eyes sparkling. "Okay, next time we'll use strawberry." Sweeter. But the real battle came at bedtime. She stood at the door to my room, pillow clutched tight, teddy bear under her arm, staring at me like I betrayed her. Why aren't husbands and wives supposed to sleep together? I pointed down the hall. "For 3 years, you've always slept in the guest room. This one's mine." Her eyes filled with red-hot panic. "You have another woman, don't you?" Before I could explain, she stormed like a cannonball, throwing open my closet. Inside, nothing but my suits. Black, white, gray. Not a single silk scarf. Not one feminine trace. I raised my hands. "See? All your things are in the other room. Skincare, clothes, everything." She froze for 3 seconds. Then, without a word, she bolted. Seconds later, she returned, arms overflowing with silk pajamas and nightgowns. She dumped them straight into my closet, cramming them between my suits. Then came her pillow, shoved firmly beside mine. She patted it down like staking her flag on new land. "There. Now my stuff is here. From now on, I sleep here. I want to fall asleep smelling my honey every night." My head throbbed. I tried one last protest. "Victoria," the doctor said. "The doctor said I need to do familiar things." She cut me off, dragging me toward the bed. "And this is the most familiar thing of all. You're sleeping with me." Half dragged, half defeated, I landed on the mattress. She curled into me immediately, arms wound tight around my neck, her head pressed in my chest. Then came the softest sound, a little purr, almost cat-like. "Your heart's beating so fast, honey. And God help me. She was right. She murmured it softly, almost in wonder. Thump, thump, thump like a drum. And really, what else could I do? You try lying in bed with the same woman who spent years treating you like a piece of gum stuck to a shoe, now clinging to you like the world might end without your arms around her. You try keeping your heart from punching its way out of your chest. Honestly, it's a miracle I hadn't flatlined from arrhythmia already. For a moment, I thought she'd finally fallen asleep. Her breathing slowed, her grip loosened, and relief washed over me. I started to slide my arm out from under her, numb, heavy, desperate for circulation, when suddenly, chomp, her teeth sank into my shoulder. Gotcha, she chirped, eyes gleaming in the dark, wide awake and way too proud of herself. I'm a really good actor, right? I just stared at the ceiling, throbbing shoulder pressing my chest. What fresh hell is this? But then her mischief melted. She tucked her cheek against my chin, voice shrinking down to something fragile. I was scared you'd leave. I woke up, and I don't remember anything. My head's just empty. You're the only one I know. What if you don't want me anymore? Her words pierced straight through me, sharp and small, like needles in the softest part of my chest. I sighed, long, resigned, and pulled her closer, patting her back. My voice came out low, softer than I'd ever let it be. Go to sleep. I'm not going anywhere. That seemed to soothe her, at least for a while. But then she started fidgeting again. She grabbed my hand, pressed it to my face, shoving my wedding ring inches from my nose. Honey, we're married, right? See, we have circle things. The platinum band caught the moonlight seeping through the curtains. I muttered, yeah. Her eyes lit with new demand. Then you have to tell me you love me every day. That was harder than pulling 3 all-nighters in a row. If you don't, she warned, I'll cry until my head hurts. And then she unleashed her trump card. I love you. I love you. I love you. Panic shot through me. I clapped my hand over her mouth before the waterworks could start. Now please go to sleep. Finally, she stilled, curled against me, small and content, like a boat drifting into its harbor. The room sank into silence, only our breathing filling the dark. And just when sleep started pulling me under, I felt her lips brush my collarbone. Her whisper slipped into me like a dream. Honey, I'm actually a little scared. Scared of what? I mumbled, half gone, scared that when I remember, you won't hold me like this anymore, that you won't say you love me. My hand froze mid-pat. My chest ached with something heavy, unspoken, because it was the same fear gnawing at me. This sweet, impossible dream couldn't last forever. And when reality came back, what would we even be? The morning of the 10th day, I wasn't woken by my alarm. I woke choking. She was perched on my chest, grinning, my silk tie knotted around our wrists like some twisted ribbon. Good morning, honey. Now you can't sneak off to work. You have to have breakfast with me. I stared at the ceiling, wrists straining against the knot, despair mounting. At 9:30, I was supposed to lead the final round of acquisition negotiations. My phone buzzed on the nightstand like a cruel reminder. Victoria, untie me. I'm going to be late. Instead, she shifted, silk nightgown slipping at the neckline, collarbone glowing pale in the morning light. Her fingertip traced my Adam's apple, playful, innocent, dangerous. Then take me with you, she purred. I'll be good. I won't bother you. Absolutely not. The words flew out before I could stop them. Take her to the office? Let the entire company watch the almighty Victoria Thompson transformed into my personal koala? I'd rather be buried alive. She leaned down, lips grazing my ear, breath warm and mischievous. Then, I'll just tell everyone. Mr. Thompson looks so serious at work. But at night he's so scared of his wife, he has to be tied up to sleep. Should I send a company-wide email? Or maybe just post it on your LinkedIn? And that's how I found myself, 30 minutes later, standing in the foyer in my best suit, face thunderous, dragging behind me my wife in a delicate lace dress, smirking like she'd won a war. Her wrist was still wrapped in the tie, now layered with gauze she'd insisted on adding. She lifted it proudly. Hold my hand. Honey, there's so many people, I might get lost. I grabbed her hand with a scowl, while across the driveway Alex stood frozen by the car. His eyes landed on the tie binding us together, and I swear his pupils dilated like he'd just witnessed a Category 8 earthquake. The car rolled into the underground garage, and I made one last attempt to reason with her, fumbling at the knot. Victoria, listen, at the office, we have to maintain a professional distance. But before I could finish, she lunged, cupping my face in her hands. She planted the kiss like it was a seal of ownership. A bright lipstick mark burned into my jawline. Then she pulled back, admired her handiwork, and smiled like a cat who'd just stolen the cream. There. Now everyone knows Mr. Thompson is taken. He's mine. No, touching. I almost blacked out from rage. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open onto my floor, and there they were, the entire department. Coffee cups in hand, files under their arms, all frozen mid-step as if the universe itself had pressed pause. Dozens of eyes locked on us. On my hand bound to hers by a silk tie, on the glaring lipstick brand on my skin. The silence was deafening. Victoria, meanwhile, practically skipped out, dragging me along like a trophy. Then, just to make sure the spectacle was complete, she pointed at my neck and announced in a voice that carried across the room, "Honey, next time you should leave the hickeys here. It's more visible like this." She even mimed a playful bite, tongue flashing over her teeth. I felt my soul leave my body. Under the weight of stares that were equal parts horrified and gleefully entertained, I sank to my knees. Dear God, let the floor swallow me whole. Frank, the CFO, rushed forward, words half formed on his lips, but the sight stopped him cold. His papers scattered like his dignity. Victoria studied his bald head like a child discovering a shiny new toy. "Who are you, mister?" she asked. He didn't answer. Couldn't. By the time she bounced away toward an intern and demanded the sparkly candy pinned to her badge, I had given up on saving face. The poor girl handed it over with trembling hands, and Victoria proudly stuffed it into my pocket. For energy, "Honey, you can do it." The humiliation didn't end there. All morning long, my office became her stage. She claimed my executive chair like a throne, spinning circles while I crouched beside her, peeling oranges, feeding her grapes, catching the pits she spat out. The COO of the company reduced to her personal valet. At one point, she tugged on my ear, yanking my attention to the security monitor. Valerie Thorne, our impeccably dressed VP of marketing, was walking toward my door. "Honey, why does that lady keep coming over here? The way she looks at you is weird. I don't like it." 5 minutes later, Valerie stood outside my office door, folder in hand, staring at the paper taped to the glass. Honey's office. No girls allowed, especially pretty ones. I gave her a look through the glass, a look that said I'm so sorry, while my career quietly burst into flames. By lunchtime, she dragged me to the rooftop terrace, eyes bright with excitement. "Honey, I think I remembered something." My heart slammed against my ribs. I gripped her shoulders. "What did you remember?" She wrapped her arms around my neck, eyes shining, then bit my lip just hard enough to sting. "That you're my favorite husband, the best in the world." Hope turned to ashes in my chest. But Wednesday afternoon, that's when everything shifted. She'd stolen sips of my double-shot Americano and, caffeine-drunk, passed out on my office sofa. I sat nearby, working quietly while sunlight striped her face through the blinds. For a fleeting second, it was peaceful, almost normal. Then her voice cut the silence like ice. "Ethan, you've gotten bold." My head snapped up. She was sitting up, eyes no longer cloudy or clinging. They were sharp, lucid, cold. "Victoria," my voice cracked. She slapped my hand away when I reached for her. Was it fun? Playing amnesiac? Taking advantage of me while I was confused? "Take this ridiculous thing off now." She yanked at the silk tie binding us, disgust curling her lips. And then, just as quickly, she doubled over, groaning, sweat beading her forehead. When she looked up again, the frost had melted. The clarity was gone, replaced by the same misty confusion. Tears welled in her eyes. Her hands reached for me. "Honey, my head hurts." Kiss it better so I can get up. I froze. My arm was still extended from when she'd slapped it away, my heart pounding like a trapped animal. What was that? A hallucination? A flicker of the real her, breaking through? That night, feverish and half-dreaming, she muttered in her sleep. Disjointed fragments. The contract, the board meeting, that clause is wrong. Her voice wavered between sharp, commanding clarity and a soft, helpless whimper. And then she bit down on my finger, the one wiping sweat from her brow, and whispered with a desperate plea, "Honey, don't look at anyone else." Only me? I dabbed her forehead with a cool cloth, my pulse hammering, unease digging deep into my chest. Could a concussion really cause this kind of whiplash? 1 second soft and clingy, the next cold and sharp as steel? Then, just before dawn, she sat bolt upright. Her eyes, clearer than I'd seen in years, locked onto mine with the same ruthless focus she once saved only for the boardroom. Her hand lifted stiffly, brushing my cheek, and her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. The addendum to the acquisition deal. Page 7, Section 3. The payment schedule tied to the earn-out provision, the calculation's wrong. They're playing with the baseline on the interest rate. Have legal rerun it with the C-model projection. And just like that, she collapsed back onto the pillows, asleep as if her strings had been cut. I sat frozen, dread crawling over my skin, then bolted for the study. Pulled up the digital contract. Page 7, Section 3. My eyes traced the numbers, cross-referenced the projections. Cold sweat slid down my temple. She was right. Hidden inside was a trap that would have cost us millions if we'd signed. A single overlooked line, buried deep in legal jargon, waiting to gut us. I called legal, called the CFO. My hand shook as the phone pressed to my ear. And from there, it only escalated. She started switching. One moment, the sugar-sweet child with ice cream dripping down her wrist, demanding, "Honey, feed me." The next, a strategist, her gaze sharp, her voice cutting as she shredded documents with terrifying precision. She even hijacked a video call once. Speaking in that sing-song voice, the board members too rattled to breathe as she dropped incisive critiques dressed in innocence. At the hospital, the doctor frowned over her scans. Yes, post-concussive syndrome can trigger psychological symptoms. But what you're describing, it's more like fragmented memory clusters coming online out of sequence. Different parts of her psyche surfacing at different times. And right now, they can't coexist peacefully. I stared at her, my wife, who at that very moment was absorbed in flicking the buttons of my shirt as if the world outside didn't exist. So, which one is the real her? My voice cracked. The doctor gave a thin, knowing smile. They all are, just scrambled. Until memories align, you'll keep seeing them clash. On the way home, she was silent, hand clutching the hem of my jacket, watching the city blur past. I thought, maybe, just maybe, peace had returned. But the moment we stepped into the bedroom, the door locked with a sharp click. My heart jumped. The innocent mask slid away. In its place, something colder, sharper, laced with fury and a flicker of dark amusement. She unwrapped the gauze from her wrist with deliberate precision, letting it fall like a snake shedding its skin. Her stilettos clicked against the floor as she advanced, toe pressing into my knee, cornering me against the door. Her voice was ice, watching me play the sweet, brainless idiot every day. Did you enjoy the show? She lifted the silk tie that had bound us for days, looped it around my neck, and pulled. My breath caught, bracing for rage, for violence. But instead, her mouth crashed against mine. A punishing kiss, teeth biting, tongue claiming, as if she wanted to devour me whole. She pulled back, lips swollen, eyes dangerous, licking the blood she'd drawn. Then she slid a hand into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and in one smooth motion, unlocked it with my face. She shoved the screen in front of me. My stomach dropped. There it was, an encrypted email. My email, sent 2 days after the accident. The subject line burned into my skull. A strategic and ethical inquiry into leveraging temporary post-traumatic amnesia to re-establish marital intimacy. Her smirk was razor sharp. Pretty clever, huh, honey? I couldn't breathe. You knew? From day one. From the moment you try to kiss me. Hiding behind that fake tenderness. Why pretend? Her fingers toyed with my belt buckle, her voice a whisper of smoke. Because this way, that hidden stock option in the acquisition deal becomes marital property. I reeled. Hidden stock? Marital property? And then she produced something worse. The divorce agreement I had signed but never filed. The one that would have ended it all. She waved it like a flag, then pulled out a silver Zippo. A flame snapped to life, blue and hungry, dancing between us. The flame danced greedily across the edge of the paper, curling it into black ribbons. Victoria's smile never wavered as she let the divorce agreement fall, watching it crumble into ashes that drifted down like dark butterflies. "It was an eyesore anyway," she murmured, almost playful. "Just burning it for fun. You don't mind, do you, honey?" I watched the last embers fade, then looked at the woman straddling me. The triumph in her smile, the defiance in her stare, and buried deep, the faintest flicker of nerve she tried to hide. And something inside me broke loose. A laugh, at first soft, almost a breath, then louder, until it rolled out of me, raw, uncontrollable, the sound of years of tension finally snapping. She blinked, startled. "What's so funny?" In one sharp motion, I flipped her onto the mattress. My hands braced on either side of her head. My lips grazed in the corner of her mouth, her collarbone, as I whispered with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. I'm laughing at my wife, at the woman who can play the helpless victim, and still do it with the ruthless swagger of a Fortune 500 CEO. That's my Victoria. Her eyes flashed victory, desire, the thrill of combat disguised as passion. She wrapped her arms around my neck, legs around my waist, and with a sly twist of her hips, she reclaimed control. Moonlight spilled across the room, catching the last of the ashes on the carpet, and in her eyes there was no trace of fragility left, only sharpness, calculation, the gleam of a predator who'd finally cornered her prey. I nipped at her ear, unable to resist. "Tell me something. When did you know that I was never going to file those divorce papers? I hid them so carefully." Her laugh was low, wicked, her fingers unbuttoning my shirt with surgical precision. "The day you hid them instead of ripping them up." Her lips pressed over my racing heart, voice soft but merciless. "You sentimental idiot. You love me even more than I love you.